Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tech Talks Evolving Distribution. Before we jump in today, we want to quickly shout out our sponsor, Aldrich Web Solutions. If you're a distributor trying to get more out of your digital presence, these are the guys that have been helping companies actually win online for over 20 years.
So we're excited to have you today on today's episode. This is a show where we break down how distribution is actually evolving. What's working, what's not, what you should be paying attention to. Anywhere from ERP to e-commerce, we're talking to the people in the trenches doing the work.
That's right. We have conversations with distributors, we have conversations with solution partners, and we have conversations with industry experts just like yourself, so you're sure to gain some value out of this conversation. So without further ado, let the Tech Talk begin. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Tech Talks Evolving Distribution. Corey Hayes alongside Bill Rosado. As always, Bill, how are you doing today, my friend?
Man, it's just a wonderful day. And to be able to talk to maybe the godfather of Acumatica user forums, I think.
The godfather.
I think that's probably the best way. Yeah.
Well,
it's exciting.
You know, Tim, you've obviously noticed Bill's last name Rosado, so he uses a lot of mafia vocabulary in these things. And I say, Bill, you gotta calm down, all right? Like you're out of yourself. Yeah, we're super excited.
Make me an offer that I can't refuse. We're okay.
Just be sure to kiss the ring. We'll be all right. Okay, so we're super excited to have Tim Rodman on today. Tim, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Got a sunny day here in Columbus, Ohio, which is unusual, and so it's a good day.
Yeah. Yeah, I say all the time, I say any day in the Midwest without a tornado is a good day. So today's a good day.
Doesn't take much.
It does not. Our expectations are not really high. No, it's great to have you on. Really excited to learn just a little bit more about what you do and how you help the Acumatica space and just get into it and really just understand. So before we get into our questions and before we start our tech talks, why don't you just tell us a little bit about AUG Forums? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Just introduce yourself to the listener and what it is that you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in the mid-market ERP space since about 2005, so about 20 years, and primarily been on the consulting side for a couple decades. Just, trying to make ERP work in the real world, which involves a lot of different things. And actually started my career, though, at Deloitte doing financial auditing. Got my CPA license, but like the technical side. I like also the ERP side because you're solving challenges at an organizational level and you're not just stuck in the general ledger. Just something that I enjoy better. And so, yeah, I've been doing that for about 20 years. I've got AUGforums.com down there on the screen. That's just a little community site that I've run for Acumatica specifically. Not like for the company, I just run it on the side, and I mean just for that product specifically. And I spun it up because in April 2013, when I sat down to install Acumatica for the first time and start learning it as a hobby, I wanted a place to take notes. And for some reason, whenever I take notes in a Word document, I can never find them. So at the time, the best way I knew to search was to start up a blog. So I started up a blog there. Eventually, it turned into forums, and now I mostly these days focus on a podcast format, but it's all about serving the community with content. And then that has kind of just in the last year and a half moved into a role with a company called Trailed. You can see my cool neon sign. I got my Trailed shirt on right here. You can find that at trailedsoftware.com. We're accounts payable automation, although moving into like artificial intelligence for the entire financial department as well. And we plug into a bunch of different ERP providers. And so, yeah, it's still been kind of the same motion for me, except I actually get to do it as a full-time job, serving the community with like non-fluffy content. There's a lot of fluffy marketing content out there, and I like to really get into the details and get into how to make things work in the real world. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for being on today. And it sounds like you got a lot of different things going on between just the trailed. Is it Trailed or Trailed D, or how did you say that? Sorry, help me out.
I find about half people say Trailed. We say Trailed internally, but the other half of the people I meet say Trailed D. So apparently wasn't a great name, but we're stuck with it. Yeah, that's how you spell it. Trailed.
All right,
like
I got you. Yeah, you got
trail, and you encounter a duh at the end, not a D, but just a duh.
Trailed. That's funny. No, super excited to have you on today. So let's just go ahead and dive into it. And thank you so much for being on. So, what is one thing that you have noticed that distributors believe about technology that, in your opinion, is just completely wrong?
Yeah, so I did look at your questions ahead of time, so I did a little bit of thinking about this.
Sure.
My take on it is, and I should say, Acumatica, typical of a mid-market ERP in that it's horizontal. Like, they'll hit the big three are manufacturing, construction, and distribution. But to me, the core of an ERP product like Acumatica is that they have inventory and know how to handle inventory, which is a distribution component, right? And so, just what I've seen in the space, I think the biggest thing about any technology related is that you believe it's going to magically solve your problems. And to me, technology does not magically solve your problems. It just is like a magnifying glass on what you're already doing. So yeah, can it help you process things faster? Yes. But if you don't really have a good flow, it's just gonna, make bad stuff happen faster. And so that's my take on what I think people believe about technology. And I blame the technology companies for this. They market themselves as we just come in as somehow magically solving your problems. And I don't think that's the case. You really have to decide, what you want it to do before you just plug it in and have it do stuff for you.
So magically, right? Like people do, the companies think that you just wave a wand, right? And they've seen a little too much Harry Potter, and they assumed everything just poof that it's going to happen. So it's awesome that you say it, because the truth of the matter, software isn't magical, right? It does some magic, but there's a lot into it in order to get that magic to come out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you think separates distributors that succeed in technology than those that really struggle, Tim?
Yeah, I think then it very similar to the first question. I think it comes down to defining what the end result is that you want to achieve. So, and I'll hit this again on one of your other questions, but I think, in my opinion, you need to come up with the end result that you want to achieve. What is that pain that you're experiencing? And then walk backwards into the technology. Don't come in with a technology and hunt around for a problem to solve. Come with the problem and then work backwards into the technology. That's my take on, how you succeed there. Because if you just come in with a piece of technology, hey, we know we need an ERP system or an e-commerce system, and you just come walking that word around the office, we need e-commerce, and where can we solve problems with this thing? I don't think that works very well. But if you are very good at listening to finding where the pain points are in the business, and even bigger picture, like, hey, we're a $10 million business, we're doing 10 million in annual revenue, and we want to take it to 20 million in annual revenue. Start with that as like your big picture, then kind of walk it back. All right, in order to do that, what are we going to need to do numbers wise? What are we going to need to do staffing wise? How can we use technology to help us achieve that overall goal instead of just starting with the tech?
Yeah. No, I think that's actually great advice that we have heard a second episode in a row now, to be honest with you, Tim. And I think that that's really important, because so many times we hear ideologies and we hear solution ideologies and we just kind of gloss over it. And we still just keep operating in reactionary measures where we just react day to day what's happening in the business, instead of actually formulating a plan and continue to work on that solution in a consistent manner. And I know that for me, like when I think about how I approach problems, I know that for me, I feel like I'm really good at focusing on the big picture of a solution and what I ultimately want to achieve. But sometimes I struggle when it comes to actually narrowing down the details to help me get to that solution, and narrowing down exactly what I need to focus on and what I need to work on today to get to that solution. So I think it's really important that you highlight that you hit that, and that we send that message across to all of our listeners that working from your problems backwards, almost, so this is where we want to be, and working it from a backwards standpoint to how do we get there is really important, and it will give you the clear questions that you need to ask when you are looking for a solution. How do we get to that 10 million mark? How do we grow past that 20 million? What kind of questions do we need to ask? And I think that that's super important that you pull that out. So. Let's go to the next one here. So what is a popular trend in distribution technology that you think is overhyped?
To me, this one's so easy. It's
Yeah.
artificial intelligence or AI.
Yeah.
So overhyped right now. But that's the case with every single piece of technology, right? Whether it was the dot-com stuff in the late 90s, which to me, AI feels so similar to me. I was in college at the time, and like the amount of companies that had t-shirts and all this other stuff that they were handing out on campus. I remember thinking, like, where did they get the money for all of this? And it's the same exact thing to me going on right now with artificial intelligence. But it's just the path of every piece of technology, like whether it was cryptocurrencies or the move to browser-based software, cloud, et cetera, et cetera. They all like hugely hyped in the beginning, and then we all sort of figure out what it really is. But we're just at that point in the cycle right now with AI where it's so overhyped. And so, yeah, that to me is an easy answer right there. Artificial intelligence. What does that word even mean, right? That word has been around since like the 70s at least, and it's meant different things in different decades. Now, specifically large language models, if you're actually going to, nail a real new piece of technology, that's to me what's new with ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc. That is new, and it is really cool stuff. It is really real stuff that is going to change a lot of stuff. But it's still, even as amazing as it is and how transformative it's going to be, still it's overhyped. Just the amount of noise I think that's going on with AI. So yeah, artificial intelligence overhyped, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
So it's funny you say AI is overhyped, but Trailed, you said you guys are kind of going into the AI market. So what is not overhyped from what you guys are doing there?
Yeah, so when I say overhyped, I just mean so much noise about it, right? But is it a big deal? Absolutely. I mean, to me, it feels very similar to the .com shift. It also feels very similar to the move from like desktop applications to browser-based applications, probably even more so than all that stuff. So it definitely is a big deal. It's just there's even more noise on top of that, right? And then also, I guess overhyped, I think it fits that word because most of the noise that's out there, in my opinion, just isn't even accurate, right? People are just saying AI and they're not even really talking about AI. So yeah, to me, every single software company needs to be doing something in that space, and we are as well, because it's such a big deal. It's just still overhyped on top of all of that.
So in your ERP consultant conversations that you're having, what have you heard from companies and clients that you have where you're like, man, okay, they're approaching this AI thing correctly? Like if somebody just hears AI, they freak out about it. How are you coaching them to approach AI that will benefit them?
Yeah. So if I were to say like what I really consider to be the transformative AI thing in the large language model space with AI agents and things like that, I don't think there's a lot of mid-market companies doing anything yet. And myself included, I've just been drinking from the fire hose. I actually didn't really pay attention to the AI stuff because I'm a total tech curmudgeon. Like I just don't have appetite for the hype. I didn't pay attention until January of this year. It's only been 4 months that I've been really paying attention to it. And very interesting stuff, very real stuff, but also very new and changing super fast, right? And so, like Bill, you asked with Trailed specifically, what we've done historically is what I would consider not even like a big part of AI, but just the machine learning part of AI that kind of falls under the AI umbrella. But machine learning isn't like this, hey, I can make a cool looking image for you like ChatGPT. It's more basic than that. But even just in that space, to automate invoices and do it reliably and have it work in the real world, so you're not sitting there manually entering the data off your accounts payable invoices, that tech really got mature, in my opinion, like a little bit before 2020, and that's right around when Trailed started. So like, that's been like 7 years that we're doing it, but it's still, in a sense, it's so new in terms of companies actually using it. Well, now with the tech of like real AI with AI agents and things, that didn't really even exist until like 6 months ago or less, right? So the long tail of companies actually doing stuff with it, I think is going to go on for at least another 10 years. Actually, even at the Acumatica Summit, they made a very interesting point with cloud in general, like cloud ERP solutions. Acumatica has been doing this since 2008. It's been a long time, but still the numbers say that less than 50% of companies are actually using a cloud ERP software. So that just gives you an idea. In the enterprise, just very slow moving to actually get stuff being used in the real world. So yeah, I'm actually not seeing it yet. I'm still very much in the tooling up kind of mode. When I talk about true AI, large language models, Claude, ChatGPT, doing actual work in a business, I don't know. I'm not seeing it on the ground yet, but I think it's going to be hitting the ground really fast.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and because I feel like most of the conversations, which we're in a little niche kind of conversation when it comes to e-commerce across distributorships, I feel like most of the AI conversations I have come with like this overwhelming sense of caution and almost like we're scared of it. We just don't exactly know what it means. We don't exactly know how to approach it, and so I feel like we're still really, generally speaking, in a state of just testing the waters, dipping our toe in the water just to see what it's like. And I think it's going to be interesting because I don't know if really anybody can predict, but I think it's going to be interesting to see really where this lands and how it affects us, and how it affects our space. Uh, and I think it's also going to be really interesting when you see these ERP players that have been around for a long time, that as they're adopting into the cloud, how they're going to adapt AI into their products and how they're going to actually utilize it. I don't know. I don't know that I have a perfect answer. I don't know that I have some crystal ball where I can say, here's what you need to look out for. But I think it's just a general observation that I'm really interested to see what this means for the Acumaticas, the Profit 21s of the world, the Microsoft Dynamics, how they're going to implement AI into their product.
Me too. Yep. Very interesting. And to me, the big word I've been using just for myself, one, it totally feels overwhelming. But the biggest thing I try to focus on is having fun with it. Like, I'm using it like for personal stuff. Like I started tracking how many calories I consume. There's an app called Bite Pal where you take a picture of your food and it estimates the calories. Just trying to have fun with it in different things, just personally, before I even try to bring it to work, right? And just focusing on the fun part because it's totally overwhelming. It's changing so fast, right? But just try to have fun with it and do some things that are outside of work, but that kind of get you ready for when it does hit work,
So we have 20 years in the distribution space as far as in ERPs. But whenever we look to expand into the next area, right, we looked at Acumatica. And one of the things that I did was, right, I ended up at AUG Forums, right, in order to find that, Tim, right, and to learn and better understand Acumatica before we kind of got into this space. What do you think the average company underestimates when they look to implement new technology?
I think it's the people side. And, we could apply this to AI. We could apply this to anything, e-commerce solution, ERP solution. I think, and I don't think it's because anyone's dumb. I think we all know it. I think we just all underestimate what it's going to take to actually get people using it. It's a big difference to be sitting in the conference room on the whiteboard with the core team of 3 or 4 people who are leading the charge versus actually getting it rolled out and getting everyone using it. And to me, it's not a features problem. It's not a bug problem. Those things are always going to happen. To me, it's just a human emotional problem. And I don't know if problem's the right word. It just takes us a while to trust a new piece of technology and actually use it. That's just the way us humans are. So yeah, I think the human side of rolling it out into the entire organization, or in your case with the e-commerce sites, getting the customers to use it, right? Like if you're, there's just so many things that I don't know if that's so many things. I think it just takes time to establish trust with human beings for good reason. We've been burned in the past, right? And so even if it's the greatest piece of software ever, and we know it's going to do great things, it just takes time to learn it, not just learn it, but trust it, actually use it. And that just takes time, that back and forth of, hey, I did this thing. It did what I expected. I can validate it. And it just takes time. But I think that's something that everyone underestimates when you're just so focused on the technology itself. And it's going to do what you want it to do, but it just, it takes time to roll it out.
Yeah. So if I can maybe peel back the curtain just a little bit and get a little bit granular with this, like I've seen that you've helped companies on a legacy ERP, kind of like a Sage 500 or Microsoft Dynamics GP, Great Plains, and what we have seen is, and I'm sure you have seen this probably even more than we have, is as companies grow, they're looking for more cloud-based ERPs. They're looking for more dynamic and robust ERPs. So when they're implementing new technology, maybe try to get you to put you in a scenario or role play here. When you're helping coach them through what changes to make in their business to better serve their customers, how are you coaching them to approach a more robust ERP? And what conversations are you having? Like, what questions are you asking them? What things are they not considering when they start to switch into a more robust ERP? Does that resonate with you? Make sense as a question here?
I think so. Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, in that you really need to define what that outcome looks like for you. Because I
Mm,
don't go into something thinking that you really need a new whatever. I mean,
yeah,
if your Great Plains or something is working fine for you, great. If I don't hear a lot of pain, just stay on it, right?
yeah,
Because it's going to be a lot of work. And I think the transparency of being honest about that up front and not trying to push someone into something. And, a lot of that's just my style. I think there's some people who are successful with other styles. So I'm not saying this is the way to do it, but it's just more my style to have the approach of more, I call it the carrot instead of the stick. The carrot is like you lead the horse by feeding it carrots. The stick is you're like, change, change, change. And I
yeah,
just, for me, I've never been successful with the stick approach. Because if I just say, hey,
yeah,
use this, use this, use this, I might be successful in getting someone to use it, but they still keep their spreadsheet off over the side. Now they're doing double work, right? And so to
yeah,
me, it's a matter of drawing that out of someone. I'm not here to tell you that you need this or that, but let's hear what those pain points are. Let's look at that big picture, and then let's see how technology could help with that. And if you can show someone, it's like it takes a little bit to get the momentum, but if you can get momentum and build that trust where someone's actually seeing the value themselves, and then you just try to keep that momentum even during an implementation. I always try to start that way, like try to find that area where is really painful, address that, build the trust, build the momentum, because momentum is really hard to get, but it's easy to lose. And to me, it's about cadence, expectations. So yeah, it's not about coming with the tech and looking for a problem. It's about what we talked about earlier. I think finding the problems and then seeing if, being open to the fact that maybe your tech can't help, and then you walk
yeah.
away. But being open to that possibility that you might not have something that can solve it, but if you do, you work towards addressing the pain that you've identified up front.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's true of almost all areas of technology, but I know that something that we've heard a lot just in our own conversations and in our jobs, and both on this podcast, is the overwhelming idea of change management and how hard it is to actually just manage change. And I could imagine, given your role, that's probably a fair amount of the conversation that you're having is just how to manage change and if change is necessary. And I think that that's a really important approach. And to be honest with you, I agree with you, Tim. That there are sometimes we have conversations with people that if the pain just isn't there, um, there's no need to force pain, and there's no need to create an illusion of a pain that's non-existent. And sometimes I think we get so focused and so, I don't know, focused on a utopia of technology that operates within our distributorship that we just think we need the newest, biggest, best thing that's out there. And a lot of times we're causing ourselves more pain by by diving into the deep end and just, I don't know, like give an analogy that you just used, drinking from a fire hose, and rather than actually understanding why we're doing what we're doing, if that makes
Totally
sense.
with you. Yeah. And you said the word change management. I actually, like, I don't know I know that's the phrase, and sort of like ERP. Like, what does ERP
Right.
even mean? It means enterprise resource planning. Most people don't know that. And even then, what does that mean? So I know that change management is the term for it. But if you dive into it, for me, I don't think you can really manage it. I think it's just sort of like this chaotic thing that you just sort of ride. And
Yeah.
I came up with this analogy, let's see, about 6 years ago. My dad passed away during COVID. And if you've lost anyone really close to you, until that happens, you don't even know what grieving is. But, you know, when you experience grieving to me is not something that you manage. It's just something that you experience. It's chaotic. It's all over the place. And to me, implementing a new piece of software is very, very similar to grieving, because there's an element of something that you lost. You lost that trusted, beloved old thing that you used to work. Now you got this new thing, and that's an element of it. And I think that's partly why it's so chaotic, because it's emotional. It's as dumb as it sounds to connect those two things.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's definitely not as crazy as real human grieving, but there's a real element of that, because so many times, like, someone gets so emotional about this new piece of software, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're losing something, and you are. Like, no new piece of software like does everything better. There's always pros and cons, and so there's some things that it does worse. And so, yeah, just the if you've ever been in those meetings where, people get pretty fiery about this stuff. And I think that's a piece of it. And so, I don't know that you really manage change in the real world, but you're definitely experiencing it, and you're definitely, you live it, you know, you go through it, but it's not pretty at all.
Yeah. Again, go ahead, Bill.
I've never heard that analogy, right?
Yeah.
But you're right, because it's replacing something, and it's usually replacing another software that someone is very much emotionally attached to. But very similar than the way that you say that, when people talk about grief, it's that different people grieve different ways. Well, you're right as far as adopting new software, right? And walking away from old software. Different people in that organization need to go about it in a different way to get where they need to be. And people need to understand that, right? Is that not everybody's going to be the early adopter and want to do it first, right? And let's go. There's going to people that are going to drag their feet, and there's going to be people kind of in the middle, right? Yeah, okay, but I'm still kind of holding back, like you said, on my spreadsheets. I'm still doing double work, but yeah, it's funny that you say that, because there are multiple pieces to that grieving that kind of matches up with making a change in software.
Yeah, and I think it's important. Bill, you know, like, we're a couple, and just being totally transparent here. We're a couple of guys that are in the e-commerce space that are really on the sales and solutions side. But I think the reason that Bill and I have had success, and I think the reason that Aldrich has had success, is because, Tim, we take an approach that I would say parallels a lot with how you're saying to approach things. We're here to help you solve pain. We're not here to help fabricate pain that isn't real. And we're not trying to get you to freak out and pressure you into a situation where you're trying to make a decision real quick. And I'm not. The reason I'm saying that is because if you're listening and you're thinking about, what do we need to change, I think it's important that you find consultants like Tim that will allow you to experience your pain for what it is and understand your pain for what it is, and work you into a position where you're not just trying to manage and facilitate some change that you don't need, but really take steps to approach change in a right and healthy way, kind of like grieving. And Tim, I think that's really important. A little therapy session out here on the Tech Talks podcast. I love it. So, last question we'll ask you today: if you could give every distributor, and kind of to your point, like you said earlier, what you do isn't necessarily just for distribution, but there's parts of it that are distribution. So, if you could give every industry leader one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
Yeah, so this one I actually didn't. I was hoping something would come to me while we were recording. One piece of advice, you know, in the tech space, I guess. I think the best I can come up with on this one is, be ready to own it. And I've seen this a lot where someone comes in, they just trust what they were sold on, but they're not really ready to step up and own it. And I think when it comes to technology, when I say own it, I mean own the end result. Because what I find in our mid-market ERP space is that rarely do you have just one vendor that you're dealing with or one throat to choke, so to speak. The partner or value-added reseller usually is the closest thing to that. But even there, like, you can never completely depend on them to handle everything. And so if you want that, if you're expecting to have that one like call that you make for every single issue, in the real world, I don't see that happen a lot. And so, I think going into it, my advice would be ready to step up and own the end result. You're going to have to get involved a little bit more maybe than you would like. But in my opinion, you also want to do that if you're truly making technology as a transformative piece of your business to points we already talked about, right? If you're really looking to connect it to the business and take you from A to B, that $10 million company, that $20 million company, or whatever those big goals are, you got to make that part of your DNA and not just treat it as some outsourced activity. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice I would give there. Don't just treat it as a project that has a start and an end. Treat it as something that's going to become part of your core DNA, which is going to require, yes, a big upfront effort, but also continual care and nurturing as time goes on, because using technology is always changing, right? So it's not this one and done thing, like maybe like a real estate project where you build a building and there's some facilities maintenance that comes afterwards, but it's mostly about building the building. Or I'm looking out at a forest right here, clearing a forest. It's not like that. Technology changes faster than that. And so it's more of something that you need to own, both the initial implementation, but also keeping up to date on new releases, upgrades from the tech side, but also reassessing your business and what tech could supplement or solve those pain points that you're having.
Yeah, it's a living, breathing thing.
Agreed.
Hey, so we've talked about AUG Forums and we talked about Trailed. There's another really cool project that you've kind of got going on where you're out on the road, Tim. Can you kind of fill us in on that project and let people know what that's all about?
Yeah, I've been doing that just as part of my work with Trailed. So I find that when you have a good product, you're not afraid to get people together and talk. So we do a lot to support user groups in person, and that could include just attending a planned user group gathering. Or what I found is that it's really easy to get together for a gathering, like a networking activity, maybe do another one talking about new features, etc. But you run out of steam real fast when it comes to the content and what are you going to get together around. So one thing I came up with is I work with the user group in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia. And like, hey, what would you want to have more of an in-depth workshop on? And they came up with the idea of Power BI. So I've just been taking Power BI around in a 4-hour in-depth, like 10-page class exercises format and serving the community with that. And then I just talk about Trailed for about 15 minutes, let people know what it is. And more, there's Trailed customers in the room and they just kind of do the talking for me. So it's just a way, kind of excuse to get people together. It's actually what that thing is right there, the Power BI workshop. But just excuse to get people together in person. And I'm finding, back to the AI side of things, I feel like artificial intelligence is polluting the digital world at a rapid pace with just garbage, like I don't know how many blog posts are actually written by humans anymore. It's written by AI. Yeah. And so there's just so much noise out there, and increasingly so with AI generated stuff. And so getting together in person, I feel like, is even more important. And also I think COVID still impacts us, being locked down for so long. And so I think there's that piece, just as humans needing to, and more remote workers out there, right? Needing that in-person connection, but also reliable relationships that you can lean on for whatever questions you have as time goes on. So I've been doing that, getting on the road.
So if somebody wants to bring a Power BI workshop to their market, who do they reach out to? How do they arrange that?
Yeah, you could throw you have a little banner thing on your side there, Corey.
Yeah.
The ability to put Tim at AUGforums.com. You can flash that up on the screen. Yeah, you just send me an email. I'm always looking for spots to host. I was in Denver last week, did one there.
Tim at
AUGforums.com. You could flash that banner up on. Make sure you wrote it down correctly.
There you go. I just threw it on. I threw it on your. I threw it on your
I'm
headline.
looking for on the bottom. Yeah, you got it right on the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the drop down or the call to action to pop slide from the right, but
sorry, my bad.
It's below Tim's name in case you.
No, I think it works fine. Great example of who cares what the tech is, right? You solve the problem, done. Got the on the screen. Move on.
Maybe a little more subtle than what we were looking for. Yeah, I was gonna say I can't wait to use AI to break this down in reels and write captions on how we're beating up AI. No, Tim, I really appreciate the conversation today. You jumping on. I honestly, it's wild because we have like these canned questions that we ask all of our participants who come on and talk. But I think you've taken a lot of what we've heard and given us new perspective on it. So I really appreciate you coming on and being a part today.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on. Enjoyed the chat and appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, listener, for jumping on, listening to another episode of Tech Talks. Remember, we have episodes coming out the first and third Thursday of every month, as well as our own newsletter that we put on LinkedIn. Love for you to be a part of the group and be a part of the conversation. Until then, that is all for this Tech Talk. Thanks for coming by. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Tech Talks Evolving Distribution. Thanks for tuning in.
And we hope you've gained some valuable insights on how to embrace digital transformation and stay ahead in the distribution industry.
A special thanks to our sponsor, Aldrich Web Solutions, for supporting this podcast. With over 20 years of experience, they've been helping distributors win online and maximize their digital presence. Be sure to check them out if you're ready to take your business to the next level.
And if you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And of course, share this with anyone who could benefit from this conversation.
We'll be back next time with more expert insights. And until then, keep evolving and embracing change.